So good. Seriously. So for those who've been following along with me, you guys know how much I love coffee. I'm not much of a coffee enthusiast. I'm just someone that happens to really like it. This is my first time actually making coffee from regular beans in the sanctity of my own home. I usually get those pre-grinded pods that you can put in your Keurig machine. Those have been good to me for a long time, but I gotta be honest. This is pretty good, albeit a little bit better than that, actually. Big thanks to my friend Chuck Morgan over at the Dadding All Day YouTube channel for reaching out and sending me this coffee. Brother, really appreciate it. I am very impressed. This is good. And once again, Chuck, you know how much I like dark coffee, so thank you, brother. Appreciate it. So good. I just had to take one more sip. That's how good it is. Anyway, let's get to the video. What's going on, everybody? I'm Jake the Lawn Kid. Welcome back to yet another video. Today, we're going to be talking everything you need to know about spring lawn seeding. Everything from the timing to the materials, all the way to my philosophy and why I personally don't recommend spring lawn seeding. And with that, we're also going to talk about why it might be the perfect option for you in your lawn this spring. So with further ado, let's get into the video. Alright, so as you can see, this is the project at hand today. This is my big project lawn that I did with Alan Hayden, the lawn care nut, about a year and a half ago. We're doing a little side project for them today. We're going to be seeding this large, gigantic area here, which is about 8,000 square feet of bare dirt. Now, I figured this would be a great time to do a video all about spring seeding because I have a ton of people asking me right now, what is the best thing to do for my lawn in the spring? Now, a couple of weeks ago, I did a video all about crabgrass pre-emergence and why I believe you should do that over spring seeding. And what I figured I would do today is I would touch into the other side of that conversation, right? A lot of people want to know, hey Jake, I know you like to do your pre-emergence in the spring, but which scenario is considered the best for doing it the other way around, right? Doing your seed over your pre-emergence. That's what I figured I would talk to you guys about today. So the first thing I figured I would go ahead and address is the fact that I'm dealing with bare dirt, right? I'm sure those of you guys who are looking to do a spring seeding, you guys might be dealing with the same thing. Maybe you're new construction, maybe you just had a complete lawn burn down, which I do not advocate, by the way. If you have good existing grass, there's no reason to burn it down. But if you did get to that point and you did burn it down, you're looking to restore it and get some new cultivars in there, then this is the video for you, right? If you're dealing with nothing for bare dirt. But however, on the other side, if you're looking to put down a crabgrass pre-emergent, then that's a situation where I would say, okay, let's evaluate the turf, right? Let's evaluate the weeds that are growing in here. If there's at least 20 to 50% of viable turf in there, then that's where I would give you the okay to just go ahead and do a pre-emergent and not do a spring seeding, because the idea being you have viable turf in there that you can just nurture over time with good cultural practices such as mowing, fertilizing, and watering, which will gradually allow it to fill in over time. Now, if you're in the same boat that I am, like I said earlier, where you have nothing but bare dirt, then this is the situation where you want to go ahead and do a spring seeding. Now, one more thing I want to mention here before we get into the bread and butter here is I did a complete in-depth series of videos last fall about fall lawn seeding, talking about everything you need to know from the timing all the way down to the materials and why we choose the certain materials that we do. As a matter of fact, if you guys want, I will leave a link here in the eye in the top right corner, as well as a link in the description below to those videos. Now, once again, keep in mind that those are fall lawn seeding videos, so if you hear me say different temperatures, different milestones, that's just for fall lawn seeding. But again, albeit the materials that we use for both are going to be exactly the same. So I just figured I would address that so you don't get a little confused. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is going to be timing, right? If there's one thing that's very important for seeding, it's timing, especially in the springtime. If you're too early with this, then chances are your seed most likely is not going to germinate depending on what your goals are, right? If you want the seed to germinate within 30 days, the seed's not going to germinate within 30 days if you're too early on this, because one problem we can run into nowadays with the strange weather patterns that we have, especially in the springtime where, you know, temperatures are up in the 60s for a couple of weeks and then they trend back down into the 40s and 30s, the last thing you want to do is seed within that window. So one thing I would recommend to you as far as milestones go is make sure that your soil temperatures do a couple of things. Number one, make sure that they're hitting 55, and with that, make sure that they're also persisting around 55. And what I mean by that is make sure that once they hit 55, that they stay in 55 and that they are not going to be trending down anytime soon. If you do that, you're going to be good to go. Now, another visual sign you want to look for with that is the soil surface itself, right? Not only is the soil temperature important, but you want to make sure that the soil is soft, the soil is wet, right? And one way to help it is to do a little bit of watering ahead of time. Do at least 3 to 4 days of watering on the soil surface to soften it up so that we can penetrate that soil once we get into the actual steps of the seeding. So make sure that that soil is soft and ready to go. All right, so the materials we're going to need for this are going to be a couple of things. First thing, obviously, is going to be our grass seed. Now, as I mentioned in those videos past, you want to make sure you have a high-quality grass seed for a couple of reasons. Number one, it is made specifically for the situation in which we are seeding, which means it will perform better in the long run. And the second reason pro-quality seed is good is because assuming that you chose your seed correctly, you're going to get a high-quality seed that is pure grass and no additional pesky weeds or crops or anything like that. In a nutshell, all you have to do when you look at the seed label is make sure that anything with the word weed or noxious weed or crop right next to it, you want to make sure that's along the lines of 0% or none. If you do that, I promise you, you're good to go. You're getting high quality seed and you're getting something that's pure turf, no noxious crops or weeds that will eventually invade your lawn. So if you do that, should be just fine. The next thing you're going to need is going to be your starter fertilizer. Now, as far as what you need to look for here, you just need to make sure you get something that contains the three main elements: the N, the P, the K, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and the potassium, right? The nitrogen, that's going to help with top growth. Phosphorus is going to help with root growth, and potassium is going to help with overall soil health. So one way to remember it would just be NPK, you'll be okay, right? As long as you get something that contains those three elements all together, no matter what the numbers are, you're going to be just fine. You're going to be giving that lawn what it needs to get a quick jump start once we get going with the seeding. And then once we got those two things, we're obviously going to need a means of application. So in my case, I'm going to need not only a spreader, but a sprayer too. Now, as for the spreader, I recommend if you're seeding a large area like I am here, primarily a broadcast spreader is what you want, as it's going to cover a large amount of area in a little amount of time. Now, I do hear a lot of people saying having a drop spreader is great too, especially if you're seeding against a definite border, like along the sidewalk or against your neighbor's property. Now, in my case, we're not doing that. We're seeding in the middle of the woods, and all we have around us is the existing lawn and the weed patch on the other side, or, the easements, if you will, right? Not really a definite border we have to worry about. So in my case, just a broadcast spreader will be just fine for that. Now, because the fertilizer I'm using, now keep in mind, as I say I'm using, this is just based on my preference, I'm going to be spraying a liquid fertility product. I need a good sprayer for that. It doesn't matter what you use. Preferably, I'd want something with a battery in it or a hose end sprayer, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have access to at Home Depot, like the orthodilane spray. That would just be perfect to ensure that this product gets down consistently and that you don't have any lag within your spray pattern. And with that, we're also going to need a couple of rakes, because we're going to need something to help with seed to soil contact, something that's going to help work the seed into the soil and contact the soil as well so that it can root into it. So that's where the rakes are going to come in. And then lastly, we're going to need a means of irrigation. We're going to need something to help keep the seed hydrated all throughout the month of watering that we have to do. More on that later, but in the meantime, make sure that you have a good, reliable means of irrigation. If you do that, then you should be okay. All right, so once we have our timing and our material in line, it is time to go ahead and perform the task of overseeding. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing I recommend you do, if you have a hard compacted area that we're dealing with, is to rent a power rake and loosen all of that soil up, right? The idea being is if we're going to seed, we want that soil to be as soft and as loosened up as possible, right? Otherwise, the seed is most likely not going to grow. If you try and grow grass on compacted soil, it's like trying to grow grass bluegrass on concrete. It's not going to be able to root into it, therefore it's not going to be able to grow. One thing that'll help alleviate that compaction is to run across it with a power rake or anything along those lines. My buddy Rich here, he happens to have a New Holland tractor for moving things around on site, and with that he also has this Kubota auger slash power rake that we're able to use to just run across the area and rough up the soil, and as you can see, it works quite well. Once we're done with that, now it's time to go ahead and put down our seed. Now, the seed we're using today, this is actually from my good buddy Pete over at GCI Turf. This is his Blue Heat blend, which is basically a mix of Kentucky bluegrass and turf type tall fescue. From experience, I can say that Pete's seed is quality and top notch, and the color is just unreal when you feed it correctly. So if you're looking for a good seed, Blue Heat is the way to go, especially with bluegrass. You guys know how much I love bluegrass, right? Bluegrass is just, it's got that dark color that a lot of grasses don't. So the mixture of bluegrass and fescue, those two will do well together here. As far as the application rates that we're going to go with on our seed here, it really depends on the recommendations per the manufacturer. In my case, Pete recommends applying this seed at 10 pounds per thousand on paired dirt, so we're going to do exactly that.
There. Just spread it down. There we go, right there, yeah. More is better than nothing, folks. More is better than nothing. Look at that. Good coverage right there. Now all we gotta do is rake it in and we're good to go.
Next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and lightly rake the seed in. Now this is going to do a couple of things for us. Number one, it's going to help with seed to soil contact. When you apply the seed, you want the seed to be touching soil, ideally on both sides, right? Hence the reason we call that seed to soil contact. We want the seed to be touching on both sides so that number one, it's shaded from the sun, and number two, it has something to root into and grab onto once the seed starts to sprout and crack and germinate, right? So we need something to cover that seed and help it so that it can root into it and get going. Another thing this will do for us is it'll help smooth out any of the high and low areas. While the power rake was powerful, you could see it did rough up the ground a little bit. We have some high spots and some low spots. So one thing we can do to alleviate that is just to go ahead and rake that soil out, right? Spread it around, level it out, smooth out the grade, if you will. If you do that, it's going to make the grade better. It's going to make things flow better, and overall, it's just going to look better. So those are a couple of things that we're going to get from the raking. So with further ado, let's get that done. Alright, so once you've gotten all the seed breakdown into the soil, now it's time to put down our starter fertilizer. Now for me, I'm going to be running this on a regimen per my good friends over at Greene County Fertilizer off of their seed starter pack. And that first application is going to consist of an application of both 16-21-2 liquid green pop and RGS, root growth stimulant. As far as the application rates go, we're going to be applying the 16-21-2 at 12 ounces per 1,000 square feet. And with that, we're also going to be applying the RGS product at 6 ounces per 1,000 square feet. That'll be a nice slow feed to get the seed going, and with that, we're also going to get some RGS in there to help stimulate that root growth. Now, as far as minimums and maximums with nitrogen rates, because I know as much as I like Greene County products, not all of you guys are going to want to use Greene County products, which is totally fine. You can totally get away with a straight all-purpose 12-12-12 from the store, no problem. All you have to do is just make sure that you stay within the range of a 1/4 pound of nitrogen all the way to 3/4 pound of nitrogen. As long as you do that, you'll be just fine. Now, I will say this, the application I'm doing here with the 16-21-2 Green Pop, we're only going to get about a 1/4 to a 1/3 pound of nitrogen, really, so not a whole lot there. But to compensate for that low rate, Greene County juices their products with sugars like humic acid, which will enhance the overall availability of those nutrients at that lower rate. But again, you guys do whatever you want to do, but just wanted to show you that's how I'm going to go about maintaining this land. So once you're done with all of these things, the last thing you need to do from here on out all throughout the next 4 to 6 weeks is going to be water, water, water. Right after you get done with these applications, start watering, especially after the liquid fertilizer we just put down. We want to water that in for a good 5 to 10 minutes to get it down into the soil and working. And then with that, from there, we want to water every day, 2 to 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, evening, 20 minutes each zone, each time. The idea here is that throughout the next 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how long it's going to take for our grass seed to germinate. In my case, that's the range I'm going to be in. We want to make sure that we're keeping that seed wet daily so that, again, it has a soft surface that it can root into. And on top of that, we also want to keep it cool for when the warmer temperatures do come around. Because keep in mind, if you're seeding in the spring and you're in a cool season zone, the risk you hold is the temperatures going up, and those higher temperatures can bake your seeds. So one way that you can combat that heat, again, is just to make sure that you're watering, and watering. If you do that, you're going to be just fine, and you will get through the summer heat wave no problem with your seed. So that's all I have for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought about it. Leave your comments below, and I'll try to get back to those as soon as I can. With that, I'm Jake the Lawn Kid. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. If I don't see you guys next time, your lawn is going to be dominated. See you later.